Radio Voice Italia. Philadelphia.
Class is now in session. Christopher Columbus University is on air from Philadelphia and broadcasting worldwide from within the shadow of Marconi Plaza. Radio Voice Italia is proud to present a recurring segment with civil rights author, professional researcher, and renowned Christopher Columbus expert, Robert Felix Petrone, Esquire.
Buongiorno tutti, and welcome to Radio Voice Italia's Christopher Columbus University, where we teach you the truth about the greatest hero of the 15th and 16th centuries, Christopher Columbus, and update you on the international efforts to preserve Christopher Columbus's legacy. I'm your host, il Professore, Robert Petrone. Today on our Christopher Columbus University segment, we have some news updates. In Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, the base of the Christopher Columbus obelisk at Penn's Landing, bearing the great gentleman explorer's name and the names of the more than 50 Italians and Italian Americans who erected the monument, has finally been uncovered after over a year of being boxed up behind black blocks of wood that covered all the names. Attorney George Bacchetto, Esquire, reports that the Waterfront Corporation and the America 500 Anniversary Corporation, who erected the monument, resolved the dispute. The names and text at the base of the obelisk are now visible for all to see. The text on the southwest side of the obelisk base reads, 1492 to 1992, Christopher Columbus, mathematician, cartographer, Cinquecento anniversary, that means 500 in Italian. Columbus, intrepid navigator with a sense of the sea unparalleled before or after him. A native son of Genoa, he became, through his dedication to a dream, an honored hero of history. His keen intellect, abiding faith, and undaunted persistence made him a giant among men of this millennium, in honor of all our forebears who braved the journey to America and their American descendants, end quote. And all this just in time for the Philadelphia Christopher Columbus Day Parade along Broad Street. If you're in the area, please show up to show Philadelphia's mayor and his bigoted Marxist minions that Italian Americans in this country stand together and that we are not a force with which to be trifled. You can attend the raising of the Italian flag outside the municipal building across North Penn Circle from City Hall on the Friday before the parade, October 8th at 11:30 a.m., followed by a resolution ceremony in City Council's chambers, and then on Sunday, October 10th, the day's festivities kick off with a mass at 10 o'clock a.m. at St. Monica's Church. The parade commences at 1:15 p.m. on Broad and Snyder to Broad and Oregon, and the festival begins at noon until 6 p.m. at Marconi Plaza at the foot of the Christopher Columbus statue. Channel 6 News will broadcast from 2 o'clock to 3:30 p.m. And if you're a performer of Italian folk dance or Italian folk instruments like the mandolin or the accordion and you'd like to perform at the parade or festival, please contact Councilman Mark Squilla at 215-686-3458. That's 215-686-3458. In Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, where Attorney George Bacchetto is also representing Italian Americans determined to prevent that city's ignorant Marxist mayor from removing its Christopher Columbus statue from Schenley Park, the same Italian American residents have offered to help descendants of the tribal peoples of the Americas erect a statue of their own in Pittsburgh. In the Italian Sons and Daughters of America versus City of Pittsburgh et al., the Italian-American plaintiffs have made a proposed resolution, as described by Attorney George Bacchetto, quote, to date, the defendant's proposed course of action is to simply remove the statue of Christopher Columbus from Schenley Park to appease some historical revisionists. This is an unimaginative and confrontational resolution that has no educational component. It places the city of Pittsburgh at the end of a long line of other municipalities that have already succumbed to this approach as a way to avoid the threat of potential violence in their communities. The statue of Christopher Columbus shall remain in Schenley Park to continue to honor the sacrifices and contributions the Italian immigrant community and all immigrants have made to the city of Pittsburgh. The plaintiff, at its expense, will construct a viewing area adjacent to the statue where an educational documentary, Christopher Columbus, Courage and Conviction, will be available for public viewing. The Native American community will place a statue of a hero of its selection on the adjacent grounds of the park. The Italian Sons and Daughters of America will assist the Native American community in its fundraising efforts to construct the statue. The Native American community shall be invited to use the facility that the Italian Sons and Daughters of America constructs to exhibit an educational documentary of the individual it so selects to honor, end quote. Mr. Bocchetto and Judge Basil Russo of the Conference of Presidents of Major Italian American Organizations, quote, believe such a resolution will show proper respect to the heritages of both the Italian American community and the Native American community, and further serve to educate the public as to the lives and contributions of each community's respective hero, end quote. Ladies and gentlemen, this is how you know that Italian Americans and Christopher Columbus are the good guys. This is a real stand-up approach, proposed by two real stand-up guys, George Bocchetto and Judge Basil Russo. And you know what? Not for nothing, as we say in South Philly, but I proposed this years ago that the Italian-American community should be the one who proactively petitions for a holiday on behalf of the tribal peoples of the Americas on August 9th, which the UN has already designated for that purpose. Because you know why? Because that's what Christopher Columbus would have wanted. He was the most vociferous advocate of the tribal peoples of the Americas during his lifetime. And this offer by the Italian sons and daughters of America is the legacy of Christopher Columbus in action. And you know what? It's not even the descendants of the tribal peoples who are behind all of this damnatio memoriae of Christopher Columbus and Italian Americans. They honestly don't care about any of this stuff. They don't care about the Washington football team being named the Redskins, or that Jeep called one of its vehicles the Grand Cherokee. They don't care about statues of Christopher Columbus, although, you know, they should, since he was the first civil rights activist of the Americas, and it was their ancestors he fought for. This is the America-hating, Western culture-hating Marxists behind all this. And they're just exploiting the descendants of the tribal peoples to tear down America, as Dr. Mary Grabar explained to us. Sure, they may find some token Lenny Lenape college professor of Native American grievance studies at Cal State University in Noodle Doozy, Pennsylvania. That's a real town, by the way. To act as the face of their cause, but it's the Marxists behind all this hullabaloo, not the descendants of the tribal peoples. You can't harbor any resentment against the descendants of the tribal peoples in all of this. And it's not just me saying this. Listen to Dr. Mary Grabar in my previous episode. Listen to Puerto Rican author of Taino descent, Rafael Ortiz, in episodes 19 and 5. Listen to Lou Gallo in episode 16. Listen to Andre Domino in episode 10. I mean, how many people have to say it before everybody understands this? It's the Marxists and other anti-Italian American and anti-American groups behind all this. In Long Island, New York, the Italian-American Long Island television show on Channel 15's Optimum Network recently featured educator Lou Gallo, who appeared in episode 16 of this program titled Educating the Indoctrinated about Christopher Columbus. The Italian-America Long Island program segment shows Mr. Gallo in full Christopher Columbus regalia, presenting in the first person the truth about Christopher Columbus, debunking and dispelling the slander, and correctly portraying Columbus as a devout Catholic hero and friend and protector of the tribal peoples of the West Indies. You can see the entire presentation on YouTube by searching on YouTube for Lou Gallo as Columbus. E88, as in episode 88. And that's Gallo with 2 L's. For the substantive portion of today's program, we have a very special guest and a very good personal friend of mine, an author, historian, member of Philadelphia's 1492 Society, which organizes the Philadelphia annual Christopher Columbus Day Parade, and the voice of the Columbus Day Parade simulcast, Michael DiPilla. Mike, welcome to Radio Voice Italia's Christopher Columbus University, and thank you so much for being a guest on our show today.
Buongiorno, Roberto.
Buongiorno. Listeners, if you have a spare 15 minutes after the show is over today, I encourage you to go back and listen to my inaugural episode of Christopher Columbus University, where I mentioned Mike for the first time. Mike played a very large role in my becoming Philadelphia's local expert on Christopher Columbus. Now, today's episode is titled Martinis with Mike DiPilla of the 1492 Society, because Mike and I love to unwind with a martini about twice a month. We always have a lot of fun at our martini happy hours, and that's the spirit and tone I want to capture for today's episode. It's going to be fun. So it's a little early as we record this to be drinking martinis, but the episode will air right around happy hour on Wednesday. And if listeners are listening to the archived episode at an inappropriate time of day, I encourage you to mix a martini with us, stirred, not shaken, like James the Gin Bruiser Bond, or by using my patented frozen gin bottle and frozen martini glasses method, which obviates the need to water down the martini with ice. Right, Mike?
Right.
And as always, to our younger listeners, don't kill your developing brain cells by drinking alcohol. And to our adult listeners, drink responsibly and never drink and drive. So, Mike, Centan.
Denton.
Now, you are a man of many hats, but among the hats that brings you here today, you are an historian and the author of a book titled South Philadelphia's Little Italy and the 9th Street Italian Market, available wherever books are sold. And you're working on 2 more books as we speak. Can you tell us about your first book, South Philadelphia's Little Italy and the 9th Street Italian Market?
Yeah, so I was an engineer for the United States Navy for many years, and as such traveled the U.S. And I was always marveled that all over the U.S. we have these places called Little Italy, and it was like, where's our Little Italy? You know, and I know many of us say it's South Philly, but turns out that historically there was an area within Philadelphia in the late 1800s that spanned from 6th Street down to 11th, and pretty much from Bainbridge all the way to Federal, like where Pat Stakes is. And that area was designated by the city as Little Italy and was referred to in newspapers and other commentaries. So I thought it was a good thing to promote that, and I thought it would help revitalize the area because we have a lot of history in that area, and there's a lot of great restaurants, and 2 of the oldest in the United States are right there, and we also have the oldest Italian church in the United States. So like everything else in Philadelphia, we have all the firsts.
Yeah, that's right. Now, and that was your first book. So tell us about the second book you are currently writing about Genoans and Margate, or as I like to call it, Margate.
Oh yeah. So for my second book, I'm working in conjunction with the Historical Society here in Margate, and so interestingly, a lot of the early Italians who were living in Philadelphia, because of their passion for the beach and having come from places like Genoa and Naples and whatnot, a lot of them migrated here to Atlantic City originally, and then over the years they've trickled down here to Margate. So yeah, we have a great history here. But I guess I'm more excited about the other book that I'm working on.
Your third book, which you are writing. So tell us about that.
Yeah, I guess all of us are very proud, and we focus. And that's kind of what my first book was about, was the Italians that had come during mass migration. But through my research, I discovered that there were a lot of other Italians that had come here in the colonial period, and there were over 100 Italians living in Philadelphia in the 1700s. But what I want to send out to the listeners is, I think there's a bigger impact of our Italian culture that has had an impact on the United States, and that is Italians that never even made it to the shores of America. And some of those people are people from the Italian Renaissance, and prior to that, of course, our Roman ancestors. So interestingly, the founding fathers basically saw the America as the rebirth of the Roman Republic, and used Rome as the model for the new American Republic. In fact, George Washington, even in his inaugural address, said that the Republican model of government was staked on to the hands of the American people.
Well, yeah. So also, not just the political infrastructure, but also the architectural infrastructure of Philadelphia is based on the Roman Republic, according to your research, right?
Yes. So if those of us who think about Rome, there's, obviously we all know the Roman Temple, and one of the main architectural objects built by the Romans. And we had examples of that with the Bank of the United States, which was modeled after the Roman Temple, the Maison Carrée in the south of France that Jefferson had actually seen. But probably most impressive was the triumphal arch that was built by Charles Peel in Philadelphia to celebrate the victory of the Revolutionary War in 1783. And that was built across Market Street, spanning 50 feet wide and 40 feet wide. And it was just tall, and it was really impressive because it was designed to look like the Arch of Constantine in Rome. And the third symbol was of course the Pantheon, which today if we look at buildings like the Ritz-Carlton on Broad Street, we see that temple-like design in the front, but that behind it we see the dome, which in Rome would have had an opening in the dome called the oculus. And that was first done by Latrobe in 1799, and he used it on the Bank of Pennsylvania, and he used a similar design on the waterworks in Center Square for pumping fresh water from the Schuylkill all the way to people's homes in Philadelphia.
That is so interesting, and I love seeing the statues of the founding fathers in togas, like as if they are Roman senators. It's really neat. So you are clearly a true historian of the founding of the United States, and you have often said that while Christopher Columbus Day was instituted by President Harrison as an atonement to Italian Americans for the largest mass lynching of U.S. history, a lynching of Italians in New Orleans in 1891. You maintain that Columbus Day is not just a holiday for Italian Americans, but an inherently American celebration. Please tell us about that.
Yeah, so what I think our listeners need to be aware of is America embraced Columbus very, very early on. Right after the Revolution, probably the first thing we see is the personification of America with the name Columbia. And that word Columbia persists in, we see it in the District of Columbia in Washington, D.C. We see it on rivers throughout the United States. And Columbus's name was used by Americans to name over 50 cities, rivers, and other things throughout the United States. And the first mention of Columbus that we find in the United States of a statue is actually right here, of course, in Philadelphia, the first, by an observer, a French soldier who was here helping the Americans to win the war against Great Britain. He said there was a statue in the State House, which of course today we call Independence Hall, and that was all the way back in 1782. But I think what's most impressive is during the 300th anniversary of independence, 3 major cities celebrated and honored Columbus for what he did. And New York City had an organization called Tammany Hall, which was also called the Columbian Order, after Columbus, of course. Mm-hmm. Boston, in Boston, they celebrated Columbus and his discovery through a speech that was given out at the Historical Society. And in Philadelphia, the American Philosophical Society. Now, this is a learned society in Philadelphia, founded by Ben Franklin, and their purpose is promoting useful knowledge and science. And we as Americans owe a great debt to Columbus because he encouraged other discoverers and opened new windows to science and all knowledge. And so the APS actually sent an emissary to Spain, thanking them for the work that Columbus had done.
That's really fascinating how intertwined he is with American history and the fabric of American culture. Now, you mentioned this first statue of Christopher Columbus in Philadelphia, and that's not the statue that stands in Marconi Plaza, this one that this French soldier saw. What happened to that? And that statue was not only the first in Philadelphia, but the first in the nation. Whatever happened to that statue?
Yeah, so that's a great mystery that we have historians at the Independence, the Independence, Friends of Independence, and other organizations that are researching that. But to date, we don't really know what happened to the statue, sadly.
Interesting. It's in somebody's private collection somewhere, I guess. Now, tell us something about the Christopher Columbus statue that stands today in Philadelphia's Marconi Plaza, how that came to be and so forth.
Yes. So that statue was actually purchased as a celebration of the 100th anniversary of the founding of the 100th anniversary of the United States. So in 1876, the United States was going to be celebrating our independence again, the 100th anniversary. So the Italians organized a group, the Columbus Monument Organization, and they basically purchased the statue from Italy for an amount of $18,000, which doesn't sound like a lot, but in today's dollars, $18,000 is almost $500,000. The statue was originally stood in Fairmount Park, opposite the Horticultural Society. But to raise the money, the Italians held a festivals, just like we do at Marconi Plaza after the Columbus Parade. So it's kind of interesting, and raise money. And they sought donations, and they were able to secure donations from even the King of Italy, donated $2,000 at the time in honor of Columbus.
Wow, that's amazing. So this ceremony that we engage in as Italian Americans in Philadelphia, it goes back over 100 years. That's just fascinating. And Philadelphia will be having its Christopher Columbus Day Parade on Sunday, October 10th, at which you will be the announcer for Channel 6 ABC's television simulcast, as you do every year. Tell us about the annual Philadelphia Columbus Day Parade that we currently celebrate and have been celebrating for generations.
Yes, so the current parade that we celebrate really was started in the 50s by Judge DeFino and the efforts of people like Anna Verna and other people of that ilk who supported them.
And tell us about Vitarelli and Cherokee.
Well, Alicia Vitarelli, of course, is our news correspondent from 6 ABC, and she'll be on along with Pete Cherokee from Chicky and Pete's restaurant, and we'll all be there to host the parade.
Fantastic. And there'll be mummers there, right? And tell us about the mummers in Saturnalia.
Yeah, so, we invite the mummers, and the mummers actually, their history goes all the way back. I mean, their history, of course, here in the United States goes back hundreds of years too, but the actual art of mummering goes back to the Romans again. And in Rome, after Christmas, they had a feast called the Feast of Saturnalia, and they just celebrated in the streets and partied, and sort of like our jesters do and the comics that start the parade. They're really the original mummers, and that act of what they do is what was done by the Romans, as way back 2,000 years ago.
Yeah, as sort of like a religious ceremony for the Romans. And St. Nicholas of Tolentine has sort of a similar celebration that's going to coincide with Columbus Day, right?
St. Nicholas is having their Italian festival. Well, theirs is actually this week. So, yeah.
There you go. And then there's going to be the flag raising at City Hall on Friday, and then there's going to be a Mass at St. Monica's on Sunday at 10 a.m. before the parade. The parade begins at 1:15 at Broad and Snyder, and the festival will begin concurrently at noon. And you will be there, as always, providing commentary for the Channel 6 ABC television simulcast. What kind of things can we expect you to talk about during the simulcast?
Yeah, so during the simulcast, we'll talk about the history of the parade, and we'll talk about all the different performers. And interestingly, although the majority of the mummers, a lot of their leaders are Italians, so we should be proud of them as well. There'll be a lot of local Italian organizations throughout the Philadelphia area that support Italian culture, and those organizations will be represented on Broad Street, marching up Broad Street. And so we'll talk about each of those organizations that'll be locally represented. And I think you were able to secure this year a high school that has a cultural organization. So we're really excited about them joining the parade.
Yes, it's excellent. I can't wait. Well, this is all very exciting. I look forward to it very much. And Mike, it seems we are down to the dregs of our martini. In my case, the olives, and in your case, the lemon zest. But it was a very good show. So thank you for coming on, and I hope we can do this again at the very latest preceding next year's parade, but hopefully sooner.
All right. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Great. And please don't forget, ladies and gentlemen, to buy Mike's book, South Philadelphia's Little Italy and 9th Street Italian Market from Arcadia Publishing, available wherever books are sold. And the 13-digit ISBN number for Mike's book is 978-146-711-6732. That's 978-146-711-6732. And that's today's class. For more news, articles, and resources about Christopher Columbus as the first civil rights activist of the Americas, icon of Western culture, paragon of Catholic virtue, and greatest hero of the 15th and 16th centuries, visit preservecolumbus.us. That's Preserve Columbus, rendered as one word, .us. And post a little note of appreciation for our webmaster, Tom LaCosta. I'm Il Professore, Robert Petrone. A presto!
Live on Broad Street, it's the 2021 Philadelphia Columbus Day Parade, Sunday, October 10th. The Grand Marshal is Joe Piscopo. Join a cast of thousands featuring 10 string bands and 40 bands and performers. The parade commences at 1:30 p.m. at Broad and Snyder and proceeds to Marconi Plaza at Broad and Oregon. The Italian Festival at Marconi Plaza begins at noon and runs until 6 p.m. WPVI TV Channel 6 ABC will broadcast live from 2 to 3:30 p.m. It's the 2021 Philadelphia Columbus Day Parade, Sunday, October 10th. The parade starts at 1:30 p.m. at Broad and Snyder and concludes at the announcement stage at Marconi Plaza at Broad and Oregon Avenue. The Grand Marshal is Joe Piscopo.